Welcome to Thrive Deeper, the show based on the Thrive Bible reading guides. This is an ongoing conversation about God's Word with Thrive's author, Dr. Matthew Jacoby, and your host, DJ Payne.
G'day and welcome to Thrive Deeper. It's episode 91. Your old pal DJ Payne here. And on this episode, I sit down with Matt Jacoby in the studio and we go through the book of Exodus, chapters 13 all the way through to 19. We're covering the time of the Israelites getting out of Egypt, walking through the desert, and getting right to the foot of Mount Sinai. This is an amazing part of the story, and still so many patterns and themes are getting introduced to us in these books of the beginnings. I know you're going to get a lot of stuff out of this episode, so make sure you've got your copy of Thrive Deeper, your Bible, your pen, and a blank piece of paper if you've got one handy. Get ready, here we go on this edition of Thrive Deeper. I can't sing it, but happy birthday. It's the birthday boys.
Oh, yeah, we're both birthday boys.
It's the birthday brothers.
Yeah.
What are you, one day?
We're in our 40s, aren't we?
Come on. You are 1 year and 5 days older than me.
Yeah, in my 40s.
So you're not going to give out your age?
No, that's okay. I turned 49 and my daughter said to me, Dad, you're basically 50.
That's my wife said that to me. I was like, thanks, love. I'm 48. I just turned 48. My birthday's March the 18th.
You're younger than me.
Yeah, 1970. You're looking very upset about that now.
Yeah.
1972 model, March the 18th. You're March the 13th, 1971.
Yeah.
So a year and 5 days apart. 49? How is it?
It's a number.
I got the same thing to say about 48.
Yeah. It's a number.
Are you going to do something big for next year? 50. Now, the one thing that we are alike about this, right? Because so many people are born in March.
Yeah.
Right? This is where people who like to try to lump everybody in who are born at the same time and like to try to make out that we're all got the same personality or something like this. This is where you and I are totally exceptions to the rule. Yeah. We know so many people are born in March. My idea of a horror movie is a birthday party for me.
Yeah, I think I'm a little the same.
I could not imagine anything worse than a big birthday party in my honour. I would want to just fade in the corner. I've always been like that as a kid. I hated birthday parties.
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Well, yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see what happens. See what happens next year for your 50th. That's going to be fun.
I've been watching, I don't know if you've seen this lately, I've been watching The Chosen. Have you seen that TV series?
Yeah.
Based on the life of Christ?
Yeah.
You have been watching?
I've watched, you are literally the 20th person who's told me about it. Yeah. I've watched episode 1.
Yeah, I've watched the whole series. So I did the pay it for, you pay money and you, and I think it's good. It's good. And I really liked it.
Thumbs up from Matt Jacoby.
Oh yeah, I really liked it.
Okay.
I really liked its interpretation. I like what they did with the characters. There are just scenes in it that I just loved. The calling of Matthew. Yeah. When he calls Matthew at the booth.
So I haven't seen that one yet.
It's just so good. When he encounters Mary Magdalene and it's just, there's just some classic scenes.
Well, it's been something, we've been saving it for the school holidays, me and the family. We've been saving it for the school holidays. And the rate that everything is going now with the coronavirus, while we're calling on this, it's a pandemic happening. We'll talk about that.
Well, there you go. If you're locked in,
exactly.
You get onto The Chosen. You actually have to buy the app.
Yeah. Well, I think the app's free.
Yeah, the app's free, and
you get to watch one episode for free.
And then you pay it forward. But they've just announced that they've released the whole series for free.
Wow.
Yeah, as a bit of a
marketing.
Yeah, well, it's not. I think, on their part, they're saying just a bit of a contribution to what's happening around the world.
Oh wow!
But I mean, there's still. It's the first crowd-funded TV series.
Yeah, Christian TV.
It's first crowd-funded thing of its kind.
And they want to do season 2, and I think they're trying to raise $8 million for season 2 of it. Yeah.
So it's not cheaply made.
No.
It
looks fantastic.
Yeah, it looks
and there's
fantastic.
actors in it that you go, oh, I recognise that guy.
Yeah.
Oh, I recognise that
Yeah.
guy. They've got real actors in it
Yeah.
and doing real things.
Yeah, so watch The Chosen.
All right.
I recommend it.
There we go. A mini episode of what to watch with Matthew Jacoby in the middle of this Thrive Deeper. I love it. Now, listen, let's get into it because we're still having to re-educate ourselves with doing these fortnightly episodes. We got so much to cover in a short amount of time, and we're in the book of Exodus.
And we're doing fortnightly episodes because
we've got Thrive Perspectives
on the other week. So make sure you get onto that. How can they get onto that, DJ?
Yes, I like the way you went on a roll there and then realised. The easiest way, we say this every week, Thrive Today. We've got a new website, thrivetoday.tv. Thrive.
Oh, have we?
Yeah, well, it's a new domain, thrivetoday.tv. The new website is getting built as we are talking. I've seen a glimpse of the new website. It's excellent, and there's some new stuff coming in the new website. I'm so excited about it. Yeah. Can't say anything about it just yet, but keep watching this space. You go there, you can find all the links to be able to subscribe, and however you subscribe to podcasts, however you subscribe to your audio shows, you can find that for this Thrive Deeper, whether you're listening to it just on the website, a lot of people listen to it just on thrivetoday.tv, or you can find the links to Thrive Perspectives and Thrive Today in all your different podcasts, what they call podcast catchers, all the different apps that you use. If you just do a search for Thrive Perspectives now in anything, you'll find it.
Yeah,
and it's there for you to subscribe. And heads up, you want to subscribe to it now because next Friday, let's say March the 27th, episode 4 of Perspectives comes out. And this is going to be one that'll give you a little bit of a heads up. We're going to be talking about panic and fear in light of the Christian's attitude to what's going on around the world right now. And we haven't recorded that episode yet, so Matt and I are looking at each other going, we don't know exactly what we're going to say. Yeah.
Well, there's some interesting sort of historical, perspectives, and it's some interesting worldview perspective, I think, on that, the whole thing.
So subscribe to Thrive Perspectives. Make sure you keep listening and you get a hold of them.
We had great feedback, you were saying, about the last episode that we did on how we know.
Yeah. Episode 3 came out of Thrive Perspectives last week, and that was how we know. Now, a little bit pulling the curtain back behind the scenes, I was a little bit underwhelmed when we recorded that. I was like, I don't know if we really got the message across what we're trying to say. Every time I feel like that, you hear these stories all the time, that's when everybody decides to call you and say, that was the best episode. That was so exactly what I needed. So really lovely feedback. Thank you, especially Megan and Tony and a few other people who contacted me directly and said really what they needed at the time. So
I like that episode. But, that's me with my apologetics philosophy hat on, which is, I like wearing that.
You can wear that all day long. Yep. All right, so that's what we're doing behind the scenes. Thank you once again to everybody for the support. And during this time where a lot of people are locked in, social isolating or social distancing, and even working from home, or sadly to say, I've talked to a lot of people today in my job on the radio program. A lot of people literally being put out of work. A lot of casual workers saying there's no work. So maybe this is the time to subscribe to some podcasts and listen in, and hopefully we can encourage you there. Now, this week we want to get into the book of Exodus. We left off on the last episode of the Passover. Mm-hmm. We're in the book of Exodus. We're around chapter 13, and this is we've got the story of Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt once the final plague has taken place. And Matt, that final plague was
the plague on the firstborn.
Yeah.
So the idea of that is, God is, in other words, saying, you took my firstborn, I'm going to take yours. So it really ramps up towards the end there. And, of course, that's when Pharaoh lets the people go. Now, Pharaoh, one last time, is going to change his mind. Yeah. And he's going to go in pursuit of the people. So God is leading the people out, and they're by the pillar of cloud and fire. Mm. And interestingly, he leads them. Now, one of the big things that's going to happen, he's led them out of Egypt. He's teaching them that they can't trust, that they can't trust Pharaoh, the gods of Egypt. God has demonstrated his sovereignty in defeating the gods of Egypt.
Yeah.
In fact, it even says in chapter 12 there that he talks about God judging the gods of Egypt,
yes,
which is what had just happened. So God is teaching his people, don't trust them, trust me. And he's going to lead them out now into a life of faith. This is a big deal now. He's going to teach them how to live and walk by faith. So they're following the pillar of cloud. They're led to the edge. Now, at this point, it's worth saying something about the number of people that came out.
Okay, yeah.
So there
is some conjecture around this.
Yeah, so it says in Exodus 12:37, the Israelites journeyed from Ramses to Succoth. There were about 600,000 men on foot beside women and children. Now, if you add the women and children to that, you're looking at, if we take that number, you're looking at about 2 million people.
That's
now,
amazing.
People have calculated, and there's an issue with that, and most, all of the commentators that I read said that there's actually no way that it could have been that many people, partly because, for a couple of reasons, partly because the line itself would have extended from Egypt to, right into the Promised Land. Also because it describes them being encamped between this place and that place, and there's no way that 2 million people could have encamped in those sorts of places. So the question is, now we know that numbers get used differently to the way that we use numbers. It's not like that. There's no evidence here they took a census or, at least at this stage. The suggestions that come in. One suggestion is around the word 1,000, which the word 1,000 can be used. It's the word Eleph, and it actually can describe a military unit.
Okay,
it's a word for a military unit as well as a number, and so because it talks about, and it's interesting. It says there are about 600,000 men on foot or footmen. So it's almost
militaristic.
Yeah, it's using military language there, and then it's using a number that can have military kind of overtones. So it can mean, but interesting. The Eleph. I won't get too much in the details here because otherwise we won't
progress.
Yeah, we won't progress. Point is that there are some different ways of taking this number, and the New American Commentary, which is one of the better ones on Exodus, suggests that this is the way to go, that we understand this as kind of tribal unit, or that it's talking about units of fighting men,
okay,
as it were, units which would have, like a squad or a platoon, which would have been made up of not larger than 15. So it's like 600 units of
these fighting
kind of
men.
15. At least because that's how we know that they numbered Elephs. An Eleph was the number of men that a village could turn out, and often that was about 15 in very small village situations. So look, there's that's one. The other suggestion is that it's literary hyperbole. There's another suggestion that goes along the lines that it's what we call gematria, which is where letters are equivalent to numbers.
Okay.
And if you look at the sons of Israel, it actually turns out the number 603,551, which later on it says there was six. Pretty much later on in Numbers 146 it says there's 603,550.
Wow.
So that may be it there as well. It may be it's like the numeric version of the sons of Israel. So basically, a cautious commentator will say, here are the suggestions. We don't really know what's going on here.
Yeah, and whichever way you come at it, it's a big group of people. And it's funny. As I was reading this time, which was a few weeks ago in our in our history. When I was rereading it again, it was the same times there was a massive protest in Hong Kong, the Hong Kong protests of early 2020, and 2 million people in Hong Kong marched and protest.
Yeah.
And there's a video of it. Yeah. And it goes forever, and I was like, that is what 2 million people look like marching through the street. It blew my mind, and I went, and again, I'm not saying that there was 2 million people or anything like that, but I was like, that, like, even if it was 1 million people or 600,000, whatever, you go, okay, that's what it takes, to move that many people coming out of a place. It was a real eye-opener for me.
Yeah, that's right. So even if, the New American Commentary suggests there were like 28 to 36,000 that came out, it's still a massive, and again, Egypt, the population of Egypt would, we're not talking the population of Melbourne or something like that. Yeah. So that still would have had that's a massive amount of people for that time, and so it's a huge disruption.
Okay, let's go forward. In chapter 13, we have God calling Moses, "Dedicate to me the firstborn among the Israelites."
Yeah,
reiterating again what this plague was about, the firstborns, and going on from there. We then get a little detour there in the wilderness where he takes them through, different ways through, that they thought that they would be going. Yeah. And as God is leading them there with the cloud of the cloud of fire and the cloud the cloud itself. We go into chapter 14, and finally, God is ramping up the Israelites. He's like, listen, I want you to camp out here, and once again, he says very clearly here in 14 verse 4, I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and he will chase after you. I've planned this in order to display my glory through Pharaoh and his whole army. After this, the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord. So the Israelites camped there as they were told, and sure enough.
Yeah, interesting thing is God leads them. Yeah. And with the Egyptians in pursuit, leads them up to the edge of the sea. Now, we're actually not sure where this was. It could have been the northern tip of the Red Sea, the Gulf of Suez. A lot of people think there was in where the Suez Canal is now, there was a network of big lakes right up through there. Mm-hmm. Some people think that's which is really the extension of the Red Sea. Some people think it was there. Some people even think it was even further north, up in the sort of north of the Mediterranean, because it's really translated Sea of Reeds.
Yes.
Now, some people think it was the Red Sea, but it could also have been up
further north.
Yes, further north. So we don't know exactly where it was. The point is that from the Israelites' point of view, to see this from their point of view, they're trusting God. God leads them right to the edge of a big body of water, and they are cornered. Now, they're thinking, well, this isn't a good idea. It's like they are feeling misled at this stage, which is why they freak out and say to
Why
Moses,
did you bring us here to die in the wilderness?
In verse 11, was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us to the desert to die? What have you done by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than die in the desert. So, because, I mean, they've got nowhere to go from their point of view. And it's interesting. Moses says to the people, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm. You'll see the deliverance of the Lord today." So Moses actually has. He's a man of faith at this stage. His faith has had to grow through this
massively.
He says, "The Lord will fight for you." And it's interesting in verse 15. It says, "Then the Lord said to Moses, 'Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to move on. Raise your staff, stretch out your hand over the water, divide the water.'" It's like,
Fred. I love that attitude there with God and Moses. What are you doing coming back to me? Yeah. My great glory will just be displayed. Again, his point is Egypt will see my glory and know that I'm the Lord. Yeah. That's the reason why he's doing it.
One of the issues here, and I'm going to say something about the sea, any large body of water in the ancient world, was seen as the gateway to the underworld. The sea, whether it was the Sea of Galilee or the Mediterranean Sea or whichever sea or the Red Sea, was seen, is symbolised for these people death and the forces of chaos. Now, Egypt, this is the forces of chaos for an ancient Egyptian, which is synonymous with death, was the thing that they feared the most. They saw Pharaoh and the gods of Egypt as kind of holding back the forces of chaos which would otherwise envelop. So this is how, Pharaoh was seen as maintaining the sort of divine order. He was a god among gods, maintaining this order, holding back the forces of chaos. Now, what happens in the 12 plagues is that God literally unleashes 10 plagues, 12 tribes, 10 plagues. Thank you. In the 10 plagues, literally unleashes the forces of chaos over the top of Egypt. Now, we've seen this theme already in Genesis chapter 1. We see that we begin with this picture of the waters covering the face of the earth. So this picture, because Genesis 1 is all about order. And interesting, coming out of an Egyptian sort of context, it really makes sense why this would make sense to ancient people, because what God does is that he brings order to the chaos. Now, at that point, the chaos is not evil. It's just lifeless and not yet ordered, okay? Yeah. So Genesis 1 connects with that theme of God bringing order to the chaos. Well, we see in the 10 plagues, God unleashes the forces of chaos. Then we have the people coming out. And this is so rich with symbolism when they come to the sea and God says to Moses, part the waters. So in other words, Moses, by God's authority and by the power of God, Pharaoh is unable to hold back the forces of chaos, which have just enveloped Egypt in the form of the 10 plagues. And yet now, in a much more literal and immediate and tangible sense, Moses divides the water with his staff and literally holds back the force of chaos. So it's the God of Israel through his servant Moses, not the gods of Egypt through Pharaoh, that is holding back the forces of chaos. Yeah. And so the Israelites go through on dry land in the midst of the chaos. And when Pharaoh comes, he's enveloped again by the chaos.
And I love the fact that there's this, like you said, a lot of themes are coming together in this story, like in this particular moment in history. Yeah. Number one, God appointing Moses, as a leader to do this, and saying it's your responsibility. And then we get this bit where God sort of retreats back to the back of the camp in the pillar of cloud and the fire, separates the Israelites and the Egyptians from each other, and allows the Israelites to get on and do their thing.
That's right.
I'm gonna keep these guys at bay and let you do your thing. And now once you're through, I will step away and you will see what's gonna happen
right,
there. It's so rich with, like you say, it's so rich with symbolism and such a iconic moment that has been represented in film, in literature, in art, in paintings, in photography, in all the different art forms, this idea, and still to this day with what we sing about sometimes in our worship and everything, this concept of the sea and, God being part of it is a big theme in a lot of people's life.
I mean, it's interesting that in Revelation 21 when it says, and I saw a new heavens and a new earth, for the old heavens and old earth have passed away, and there was no longer any sea. Now, in the symbolism of Revelation 21, it's not saying that in a new heavenly earth there's literally going to be no sea. There's no more kind of realm of death. It's talking about no more. It's the ultimate overcoming of chaos of this symbol, which endured into the Greek and Roman world. That symbol. And I think
you've done a great job here, Matt, of highlighting it again to you, the listener. We're still in the beginning books. We're in the foundational books. And so we get at the very beginning in Genesis 1, we get the idea of chaos in the sea. Now in Exodus, as he calls out his people, we get the idea of chaos in the sea again. And this is going to be an ongoing theme all the way through to the point of Jesus, all the way through to the Revelation. We get this idea. So keep that in the back of your mind that sometimes, not all the time, sometimes the sea and the ocean is considered like, this metaphysical world or this darker world.
And we see that in the book of Daniel, the beasts come out of the sea. Again, in Revelation talks about the beast that comes out of the sea.
Yes.
So, the sea is the realm of death and chaos, right? Now, I think this is poignant because our world is in a bit of chaos at the moment. And the world system is kind of is always sort of pictured in Scripture as this kind of fickle answer to the problem of chaos. Like, it doesn't really hold back the chaos, and it's always subject to chaos in some sense. But it's really only the purpose of God that is invulnerable to the chaos. You know, it's like you sense here God showing his people, if you walk with me and walk in my purpose, I will make a pathway for you through the chaos.
That's a great point. So at the end of chapter 14, we get the Israelites, literally their eyes are like saucers. They've seen all this. And it says they were filled with awe and they put their faith in both the Lord and Moses as the Egyptians are washing up on the shore in front of them. Amazing scene here. And then we get chapter 15, which is, I love it, and we're not going to spend a lot of time here. This is the first song in the Bible.
Yeah.
Now, you as a musician and you as a psalmist and you as the man behind Sons of Korah, have you ever considered putting Exodus 15 to song?
No, I haven't.
Yeah.
It's very psalm-like
yes.
in the way that it recounts the event, and you imagine the joy that went with this song. They would have, this is... And the fact that there's a song here immediately was commemorated, was put into the form of a song, so it could be commemorated and passed on.
Mm. I remember the chorus of Miriam that we'd often sing in church camps and stuff growing up.
Yeah.
Both the horse and rider hurled into the sea, and I was, as a young kid, I'm like, really, we're singing? What are we singing about here? Is this what's going on?
Well, it's interesting that that last verse in chapter 14, that the people feared the Lord and put their trust in him and his servant Moses. Then they celebrate, then you have the celebration. Then the very next thing that happens is that they go through the desert for 3 days, and they come to this body of water, which is bitter, probably salt. It probably ends up being salt water. So, or just contaminated water of some kind. And so they cry out, and they grumbled against Moses. What are we to drink? Well, they've still they've put their faith in the Lord, but their faith, God is going to teach them to exercise that faith. This was a chance to do that, and they don't do very well. And we're going to see that in successive examples here.
Yeah.
They're really going to struggle with this issue of faith.
Big time. This is the new theme that we're picking up the thread, and we've seen hints of it before in almost in the person of Moses, where Moses will say complain right at the very beginning, like have this open relationship with God. Well, now we're getting it in a slightly different way, not so much a complaint about what God has called us to do, but just whinging in the Australian way to say it, or being awfully obstinate in not wanting to believe.
Yeah. Well, they're grumbling. That's different to what the Psalms do when they complain. Psalms bring complaint. Grumbling is what you do when you don't believe. Complaint is what you bring to God when you do believe.
Oh, that's a great point.
The Psalms of complaint are holding on to God's promises, saying, God, you said that you would.
Yes.
Now it's an actual expression of prayer. Grumbling is not praying. Grumbling is what you do when you walk away from God, saying, I want to go back to Egypt. This is ridiculous. That's a really important difference. Now here, at this final stage, this initial stage, Moses cries out to the Lord, and the Lord, cures the water, makes it drinkable. There's no fuss there. The problem is that they should learn from this. Every time God does something, he's teaching his people, I'm going to look after you. It's going to be all right. So he miraculously makes the water drinkable. Then we read in chapter 16 that they're traveling in the desert again, and they've got no food after 15 days.
Now, sometimes when we're reading it, I'm gonna bat here for the Israelite people. It makes it feel like the next hour or the next day.
No, 15 days later.
Yeah, this is big groups of people, not long, but some period of time in between these incidents.
And this is dry desert too. The desert that they wanted in the whole region of the Negev Desert in what is now southern Israel is, I've travelled through it a number of times, and it is hot and really, really arid. There's just there's nothing there. And this is what they're traveling through. Okay, so you get it. So it says, again, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. The Israelites said to them, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into the desert to stuff. You see, they think we had stability in Egypt under that system. Now
let's leave out the slavery part and the whippings and the beatings and the throwing the children into the sea, like into the Nile. Let's leave out that part. We had all the food we wanted.
Yeah, that's right.
I love that. And again, Matt, I want you to reiterate that because I think that's such an important point that we might get mixed up on is the difference between a complaint, what you call a grumble, what I call whinging.
Yeah.
When we read through the Bible here, especially through this account of Exodus, that is a big difference.
Yeah.
We might hear Moses complain, and now sometimes Moses does fall into despair, and
sometimes, but the key moments. There are key moments where Moses complains to the Lord, and the Lord responds with great favour.
Yes.
Because that's Moses exercising his faith, you see.
So, because Moses' complaint comes out of that faith.
Yeah, that's right.
He's saying to God, and this is what we read in the Psalms, you have said this, I'm not experiencing this.
Yeah.
What's wrong with the picture?
He turns to God with a faith-filled prayer. These people are turning away from God, grumbling, saying, we want to go back to Egypt.
Because they don't believe.
Because they don't believe, that's right.
Now, that's a great point, and now we can get totally sidetracked on that, right? Which I'm very tempted to, but we're about to take a break right now. So as we go to the break, I want you to. How do we measure that in my own heart?
Yeah,
because sometimes I think I'm complaining to God in a right way, but then afterwards I go, I was just whinging. I was just this petulant child complaining about my. How do we measure that in our? It's easy for us to look back at these Israelites and go, oh, silly Israelites. How do we measure that in our own heart?
You want me to answer that now after the break?
No, you go now. Throw it to you right now.
Well, complaint really is whatever we do before God. I mean, there are things, there are statements made in the Psalms that sound really like that petulant child. And that's okay, as long as you're coming to God like a child, even if it's a petulant one, that's better. God, why have you rejected us forever? I mean, that's a corporate lament. And it's this massive overstatement because the psalmist knew that God had made an everlasting covenant with them.
But that's how they felt.
Yeah, so Psalm 74, why have you rejected us forever? That's how they felt. And it's actually a little bit of a provocation. There's that little provocation. It's like my children's, you don't love me, or, well, it's not quite like that, but it's that kind of provocation. God, but you said you would, and you're not, right? That's and I know, I mean, and this is the thing that some people find hard about the Psalms. Oh, really? Can you say that? That just seems really irrelevant. Complaint in that sense just seems like a bad thing, whereas we wouldn't have it in the Psalms if it was a bad thing. The Psalms are being held forth to us and as if to say, this is what faith looks like. That's what the prayer Psalms, the Psalms of lament, but above all else, demonstrate to us. This is what faith does. They bring a complaint, they bring appeals, but God, you said, how will you be glorified if I die here? Remember your unfailing love. Remember the covenant that you made. God, you've rejected us. You've cast us off, but you said that's the sort of, it's that kind of complaint, that bold complaint. We're told in the book of Hebrews to come before the throne of grace boldly. And I think the writer of Hebrews speaking to Jewish people, they know what that looks like. It looks like the Psalms.
it's DJ here, and we're just going to take a really quick break in the middle of this Exodus story just to touch base and make sure that you're okay. As I record this, we're recording this in the middle of March 2020, the day that it comes out. And I just wanted to acknowledge that a lot of people are really stressed and worried about the pandemic, the COVID-19, the coronavirus, the Chinese virus, the Wuhan flu, whatever you want to call it. Everyone's worried about it. The media is telling you to be fearful, and a lot of people are panic buying, social distancing, locking themselves down in lockdown, and there's a lot of fear out there. In light of that, Matthew and I are going to sit down next week and record a special edition of the new podcast, Thrive Perspectives, where you might have heard us mention it at the beginning of the show. I just wanted to let you know that you have the opportunity to send us a question. If you're worried about this, if you're panicking, or someone you know is worried about it, if you've got questions around this whole coronavirus thing that we're living through at the moment, please send them in to us. We would love to cover it on our sister podcast, Thrive Perspectives. Make sure you're subscribed and you rate that one as well. To get a question to us, it couldn't be more simple. You've got a couple of opportunities. Head over to thrivetoday.tv. That's our home for everything online, thrivetoday.tv. And we are also on Facebook. We have the page Thrive Today. So if you go to facebook.com/Thrive Today, you'll find our page there. And then underneath that, we have our two private groups, Thrive Deeper for this show that we're doing now, and Thrive Perspectives, the new one. You can let us know, discuss, talk to other people in those groups and on that page. All the information there is on thrivetoday.tv, the website, and also the links to the Facebook pages. It's all there. You can send us a question and get in touch with us there. So to put a little bit of a time frame on it, Matthew and I will be recording probably on Thursday, the 26th of March. So get your question in before then. Get your question in, let's say, by Wednesday, the 25th of March, if you've got one about the coronavirus and how a Christian should be living and acting around that. And we'll try to cover it on this upcoming podcast of Thrive Perspectives. All right, so I hope that next episode of Thrive Perspectives could be really helpful to where you are. Let's do it. Let's get back into the episode. Let's join back with Matt as we go into the book of Exodus on this edition of Thrive Deeper. You're back, episode 91 of Thrive Deeper, and we are in Exodus chapter 16. It's DJ here with Matt, and we get Exodus 16 is this beautiful account, and again, a real important, I'll say, put a bookmark on this chapter because I think it's another element in our themes and everything that we learn, because this will come up again, the concept of manna. God providing manna and quail to the hungry Israelites. Again, they've complained to Moses, we're going to die. Moses goes to God and God says, watch this, and then this amazing, very detailed account of the orderliness around manna and the quail that the people could eat. Yeah,
that's right. Well, this of course when we pray, Lord, give us today our daily bread. It evokes that, the daily provision of manna, was this bread-like substance, whatever it was, for the Israelites. Now, this is interesting too because in Egypt, what the plagues did essentially is destroy the ability of the Egyptians to produce for themselves. The locust destroyed all the crops.
Yep.
So we see that was vulnerable. The gods of Egypt could not prevent the famine that would naturally ensue from that.
Yes.
Food is the basic this is the basic need. So it's the bottom of, it's the foundation of Maslow's, hierarchy of needs.
Yep.
God is showing that he can provide this Egypt could not. Egypt could not prevent famine, but he can lead his people through a desert, a really, really arid desert, and they will still have bread and they will still have meat. And meat is much more of a luxury, particularly a rich meat like quail. So,
which is a luxury even to this day.
Yeah, which is a luxury even to this day. So they've got bread and they've got meat, and they're wandering through the desert. So this is such a clear demonstration on God's part that should inspire faith in them.
100%.
And one test of that faith is on Friday, the day before the Sabbath. I want you to, on each day, they were to collect only
what they needed.
1 days, but on the Sabbath they were to collect 2 days.
And if they worked any other way around it,
that was the only day that they could collect twice the amount. Now, of course, they do what a lot of people nowadays are doing, trying to hoard, because we don't know. We don't know if there's going to be enough. Will there still be manna? Even though God had said to them through Moses, I will provide this for you every day, yet they still go and hoard. Because the idea here is that go out and collect manna, there'll be enough for everyone. Well, the lack of faith comes out in the fact that some people hoarded, and when they did, it
stunk up and went wrong. And I love the description of we don't learn much about it, but we do find out that it's white like a coriander seed, and it tasted like honey wafers.
Yeah.
What are honey wafers? I don't know.
But it sounds pretty good.
It sounds good.
Look, in those days, anything honey, honey was a real delicacy in those days. That's why, milk and honey, that's when the promised land is described as the land flowing with milk and honey. Honey is a real delicacy. So God is providing for them. This isn't just dry, tasteless crust. It's manna and quail.
Yeah.
They're getting well looked after.
He could have provided a pill.
That's right.
That tasted like nothing.
That's right.
And satisfied
And
their
we've
need.
seen that he has provided water for them. Yep. But as we turn over into
Chapter 17. One last thing about 16 before we go to 17. I don't know you're about to go into the thought about the water from the rock, but I love the fact that we get this outside of time narrative at the end of 16 there, where it talks about how the future generations will see the manna. The manna has been kept. Yeah. And it's going to be kept in the ark, and it's going to be like we get this obvious the editors working with Moses are coming alongside and sort of
good point.
almost saying, hey guys, and it did happen, and we have and it's still they've sort of coming in.
That's actually a very good point. Partly, I'm glad you picked up on that, because to take a jar of manna and put it in the ark. Yeah. That's significant for a couple of reasons.
Because you go, what's the ark? We haven't got to that part of the story yet.
Yeah, that's right.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, that's right. Well, they do. They eventually place it in the ark.
Yeah.
But the fact that they're going to keep it for generations to come, there's two reasons for that. First of all, it means that what God is doing here is meant to say something. Mm-hmm. See, again, everything here has this...
Amen.
Important symbolic significance. Mm-hmm. It's really happening, but it's not just about the results. It's not just about the fact that they got fed. God is speaking to his people of all generations about his ability to provide for his people. This is who he wants to be for them. And so store it in the jar. Yep. Eventually it's put in the ark. Everything that's in the temple is there. It's like part of God's covenant. Mm-hmm. So by doing this, getting them to do this, God is saying to them, hold on to this and be reminded, because I'm making a promise. This is not just what I did, this is what I will do. And the second significance, as you've said, is that, did this really happen? Well, the evidence, yes, we've got evidence of this.
And I love the fact I consider myself part of the generations to come. I mean, we don't have the ark sitting here.
And we don't have the manna.
We don't have the manna, but we have this recording of it, and we know that God provided this, because if he didn't, we wouldn't have this account of anything.
Yeah, that's
so
right, yeah.
we can consider ourselves.
That's right. And as you said too, evidence of later editorial work on the Book of Exodus. Yeah.
Which is a great thing to realise that this has been put together by a team of people. Along with Moses. Anyway, blah blah blah. We go down that way. Chapter 17. We've got manna and quail. The Israelites being provided for. They've left. Gone into another place called Rephidim. There was no water for the people to drink. So once again, they go through the dance. The people complain. Moses is like, why are you complaining against me? Yeah. Why are you testing the Lord? And they were kept on complaining to him. So finally he goes to the people and he goes to God and goes, what am I going to do with these people? Yeah. Please help me. They're ready to stone me. And God says, look, it's okay. And this is an important part because this is going to come up again later on.
Yeah.
Walk out in front of the people, take your staff, the one that you used when you struck the water of the Nile, and call some elders of Israel to join you. I will stand before you on that rock at Mount Sinai. Strike the rock.
Yeah.
Just one strike, once.
Yeah.
And God is saying, I'm standing in front between you and that rock.
Yeah.
Strike the rock and water will gush out and people will be able to drink. So he did what he was told and people were,
Yeah, so they're there to witness it. The elders are there to witness it because it's not just about, it's not just about the result.
No.
It's
God's saying
learn
something.
the lesson.
Yes.
God's saying something. I want you to learn the lesson here. And he's really being patient with them here and there. I mean, they're just again and you just think that they would have learned by now. But hey, they're traveling through the desert. It's hard. I wonder sometimes we can think, what a bunch of idiots.
Yes.
How could they not get it?
Oh.
But would we, are we really that different? I mean, God's done amazing works of provision in my life, and yet I still find myself, in the face of, new challenges, feeling worried and concerned. And I think God would say, what? I've provided for you before. Why do you have this attitude?
I love that point, Matt. It's a point that I think that we really need to underline here, that when we're reading these stories, we need to be putting ourselves in the shoes of not Moses and Aaron to the Israelite people. Right. We're supposed to be identifying with them because even though we go, oh, come on, people, don't you see?
Yeah.
But really, if we were there, would we be any different?
That's right. And yet we're warned in Psalm 95, today if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts as they did it in the Meribah massacre in the desert.
Yeah.
It's talking actually about this very account.
Wow.
Because he's saying these people, and it's interesting the way that it puts it. It says, today if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts. This is about, do you hear what God's saying to you?
Yeah.
The problem here is that they experienced the provision, but they didn't really listen to what God was saying in the provision. Yeah. That's the important thing. And what we need to make sure when we read this is that we are listening to what God is saying through these stories.
That's a great
Take
point.
that to heart
Yep.
and not freak out when things look precarious.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
okay.
topical. But
Exactly. Okay. The last half of chapter 17, we get that great story. We get the introduction to Joshua. I think this is the first time we see Joshua in the narrative. And he's immediately like Moses' right hand man, like this commander of the army. He's really high up guy, and they fight the Amalekites, and we get this amazing story of Moses holding up the rod over the top of the army, like up there, sort of interceding for the people, and they figure out, hang on, Moses, when you've got your arms up with the rod, the Israelites are doing really well. But as soon as you get tired and put your staff down, they're getting defeated. So Aaron and Hur come alongside him, hold up the rod for him, and they defeat the Amalekite army.
It's really profound, this story at this point. Of course, the Amalekites are going to become the arch enemies of the Israelites. But the point of this situation with Moses and raising his hands, this is part of the whole lesson around learning to live this life of faith. God is teaching his people, this is how you move forwards. You pray your way forwards. It's through prayer. The prayer becomes we've seen this in the lives of the patriarchs, Abraham's prayer in Genesis 18 and how he interceded and that, and we see the importance of Jacob wrestling with God. I will not let you go until you bless me. All of these stories that underscore the importance, these key moments of prayer.
Yep.
God is going to reveal from here on when Moses comes to him and intercedes on behalf of the people. God's going to, it almost appears at point as though God's going to change his mind. I'm going to judge these people. Let's start again.
Yeah.
Moses says to God, no, don't, because of this and this reason. Yeah. And God says, okay, I won't. And we jump to the theological problem of, gee, did God... Yeah. No, but actually what the text is trying to encourage us to do is pray. God wants us to have a say. Come to me and pray. And this is illustrating what will happen, that our fate depends, our fate ultimately depends on God's sovereignty. Yeah. But here, our well-being depends, in a sense, on our prayer. Whether we win or lose depends on prayer. A praying people is a victorious people. This is really important. I think it's important for them. This is how it's going to work now. It's not by, not by might, not by strength, but by my spirit. And God is going to wield his power in response to prayer. That's the message at this point.
Totally. And it's such a rich picture. Again, it's one that's been reiterated again and again in sermons after sermons, different, illustrations coming out of that. You've got everything from the power of prayer to the supporting of Aaron and her to,
because it's such a graphic picture.
Oh, amazing picture, to the point where one of my favorite ones, and I still sort of carry this with me today. I remember being a young boy hearing this sermon, one of the first sermons I heard about this, and the pastor's point, I still think it's a good point, was like God didn't say, okay, Joshua and the gang, stay at home, just as long as Moses holding up his staff, magically I'm going to do this thing, which he could have, which he does again, like we see where times where God says, you stay back there, I'm going to do it for you. Yeah. But there's this wonderful picture of everything working together well. Like Joshua is really fighting. Like he's really out there clashing swords with people and they're really battling.
That's right.
And they're doing their best, what God has called them to do. But over that is this prayer and leadership and everything. It's a beautiful picture.
And it's, as I said, it is so graphic that as long as there is prayer over them, they're winning. And when it's symbolically symbolized by the hands, but when the hands are lowered, they start losing. And I think this is so important for us as Christians and for the church. As long as there is prayer, we'll be winning. Without it, we lose.
Let's see if we can finish off maybe one or two more chapters in this episode, Matt. This is one of my favourite stories in this part of thing.
In chapter 18?
Yeah.
Tell me why.
I just love this character of Jethro. He's really? A mysterious, God-following, wise man. Yeah. And we get obviously the picture that at some point in that whole plagues of Egypt, Moses had said to Zipporah, his wife, and his two sons, go back to Dad. Yeah. He's going to look after you. I'll let you know when to come along. So, Jethro back in Midian and Zipporah and the kids are like, okay, we've heard these amazing tales are coming back from all over the land that, this is happening with Moses and the God of the Israelites. So he brings Zipporah and Jethro and that come out to meet Moses. Yeah. And, so Moses goes out and I love, this is one of the reasons why I loved it. Moses, imagine what this would look like to the people. Yeah. This man comes into the camp who's a foreigner in one sense. I know they related. Yeah. And Moses bows down before Jethro and kisses him. And, and he's an equal with Moses straight away. And I love the, Jethro sort of being this wise sage who's watching Moses' day-to-day life and goes, what are you doing, you fool? Like this, you're going to kill yourself, you idiot. Basically with the way that Moses is sort of adjudicating everything for all the people. And Jethro's advice is so practical, so wise, but it's not a big song and dance like thus saith the Lord is brought to, like it's that really discerning mind coming into a thing that's going on.
And this is going to lay the foundation for the sort of structure, the political structure of the nation as well, so that it doesn't, not everything comes back to one king. It's a tribal confederacy where they have elders, and it's justice and fair judgment is an important thing, and so having people to go through to get justice becomes a very important part. And as Exodus goes on, we're going to meet the law.
Yeah.
But you've got to have people to administer the law.
Yes.
And so that's set up now, and then you have the law coming there to administer.
Yeah, and it's a great, again, as I guess the reason why I like this so much, and I'll be really honest here, is sometimes I feel like I'm a Jethro. Like I'm not the Moses in the story. I'm not the pastor in the story. I'm not the head of some ministry or whatever like that. But I'm blessed to be part of a lot of people's lives. And sometimes I feel like God is like nudging me to go, all right, you got to do the Jethro thing and come along people and go, listen, you're going to work yourself to death, you idiot. Like, what are you doing? There's a better way. Yeah. Because sometimes I think we get lost when God is leading us on, or we're experiencing something that's really holy or beautiful. We totally get lost in that and we work ourselves to death.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And I love that. And
if
again,
God calls you to do something, it doesn't mean you're the only one that has to do it.
Yeah. Look for the Jethro in your life. Look for the plain speaking, discerning person who just goes, yeah, rightio. Okay. Yeah, you're wonderful, but you might need some help with that.
That's right.
Okay. Let's finish off with chapter 19 on this episode. Now it's getting exciting. Now we're like ramping it up again. Exactly after 2 months after the Israelites left Egypt, they arrived in the wilderness of Sinai.
Yeah.
And this is really significant here because Moses climbs up the mountain to commune with God.
That's right, wherever that mountain is, and we don't know really where. I think there are about 12 different suggestions of where Mount Sinai is. So the jury's out on that. It doesn't really matter for our purposes, but here they are at the foot of Mount Sinai. And there's a very significant statement made here from verse 4, where it says, "You yourselves have seen what I did to Egypt and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself." Now that's important. God is bringing them to himself. Now, if you obey me fully and keep my covenant, then out of all nations you will be my treasured possessions. Although the whole earth is mine, you will be for me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you're to speak to the Israelites. Now, it's interesting. God had said to Abraham, the covenant that God makes with Abraham is, I'm going to bless you, make your name great. You just got to trust me. Leave your country and your father's household. Come with me, right? So Abraham has to do something significant. Abraham does have to obey to sort of step into that. But here we get more detail on what it means to actually live by faith and to step into God's purpose. You actually have to walk in God's purpose. And God's going to give them the law that is going to act as like the, what are those strips that they put on the side of the road, the rumble strips?
Yeah.
It's going to act as the rumble strips, on the side of it's going to be the edges of the road. Now, we don't mark out a road to inhibit. We mark out a road to give greater freedom for travel, don't we? So there is this sense that God's going to give them these commandments so that they can fully become who they're meant to be. He's going to mark out the road so they can go faster in becoming who they're meant to be, right? This is an important context for the commandments. It's, if you obey me fully, keep my covenant, then you will be, for me, a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So in order to be a kingdom of priests, you have to be a holy nation. And in order to be that, you've got to stick on the road. Stay on the road. This isn't about if you obey me fully, then I'll accept you. This isn't a formula for how to be reconciled with God, or how to be approved by God, or how to be accepted by God. This is a formula for how to become a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. You've got to obey my law. You've got to walk on this road. So that's important. It's important context. he's reminding them there, interestingly, and it's telling them that, and Peter repeats this in his letter, referring to us as a royal priesthood.
Yes.
This is the role of God's people. We have this mediatorial role to mediate God's blessings to the world around us. Yeah. And he's saying to the nation, this whole nation, because God had said, I'm going to make you into a great nation. And through this great nation, all the ends of the earth are going to be blessed. Yeah. So that's what he's connecting with here. He's connecting with the Abrahamic promise. I'm going to make you into a great nation, and through you, all the ends of the earth are going to be blessed. Now, how is that going to happen? It's going to happen by them obeying God so that they become a holy nation. Yeah. And by becoming a holy nation, and holy meaning separate.
And we get a visual picture of this holiness with what goes on in the rest of the chapter.
Yeah.
As in God says, right, I'm going to this, and again, to have been there, to have seen this, this black darkness of a cloud, the presence of God. And again, today we love to sing about the presence of God and everything like that. Yeah. I'm sure the Israelites would have a totally different take on some of our songs about the presence of God. The presence of God comes down onto that mountain. They are terrified. It is a terrifying experience, thunder, shaking, everything like that. Moses is commanded to mark off around the mountain. You are not allowed to go over this or you will die if you come over here. Yeah. There's rules around this. He even says to Moses and Aaron as well, who he calls up as well, you're not allowed to have any sexual intercourse for days in advance to be able to come in. Like there's all this like holiness separation, divided from the normal type of thing, to come up here and commune with God. It's a powerful thing.
And it's not that the sex was evil or bad in some way. It's actually it was a ritual thing, and this is going to come back later in the law. It's about complete dedication to God. It was an expression. That abstinence was a complete expression of complete dedication to God. So a lot of this it's about symbolism. It's not about the results or why did they do that. Yeah. Often it comes down to what that symbolizes.
Now I do have a question. One thing popped up to me, and we'll finish off the episode with this, Matt. And I hate to throw you the question at the last minute here. When God is saying, here's the markers, do not come. God says, like, even the priests who regularly come near the Lord must purify themselves so the Lord does not break out and destroy them.
Yeah.
Did they have priests? Did the Jewish people have priests in that time? Because in my dumb understanding, I was like, hang on, isn't the priesthood called later on?
Yeah.
Or is this part of the judges that we've just seen? Who are these priests who are regularly coming before the Lord?
Yeah, it's a little uncertain here. Yeah. I mean, Jethro is called the priest of Midian.
Exactly.
So, so there may be it may be something to do with that.
Yes. So some of these holy people, because again, like we see through the person of Jethro, there were priests.
Yeah, because God actually is going to set aside the Levites as priests. Now that's going to happen. Now the importance of this, and I think the key question is here, isn't God has said, I've taken you out of Egypt to draw you to myself. But then he says, don't come anywhere near me. Basically, and that should raise a question for us. What is going on here? Now, what subsequently is going to be revealed to them from this point is God is going to he's going to reveal the law to them, but the most important part of the law is the tabernacle system. And that is going to show them how a sinful people could relate to a holy God.
Yes.
Now, that's an important issue, but they had to experience the issue that a sinful people cannot come waltz into the presence of a holy God. So this sets up the problem that God is going to solve.
Fantastic.
It's this: God is holy, you are not. God cannot embrace that which is not holy. So that is very much felt by the Israelites, so that by the time God reveals all the stuff about the tabernacle and the sacrifices, you get this sense. This is the gateway. This is how we are cleansed through the sacrifices, and this is how we can live in the presence of a holy God. So this is important, I think, to recognize that in order to understand the solution, we have to understand the problem.
Oh, great point.
And the first thing that God is going to reveal here is the problem. You're a sinful people. You're separated from God. Let me demonstrate. Feel that.
And we as the reader should be aware of that. And this is why I say we should be putting ourselves in the place of the people, because we should be reading them. Gee, they are a sinful people. They're complaining all the time bitterly.
Yeah.
They're not getting it right. And if we put ourselves in those shoes, we ourselves should be trembling at the foot of the mountain going, how are we going to do this?
And their being sinful didn't preclude them from going through the gateway that God had made symbolically in the temple system.
Yeah.
It was because they were sinful that gateway was made. Because despite their sins, God is saying, I'm accepting you. I'm drawing you to myself.
Yeah.
But this is like their moments. This is their moment of penitence. This is their moment to realize that they are unclean. This is an experience. I believe this is something I go through regularly when I often, for me, the most profound moment of connection with God is a moment of reconnection, is me recognizing the things that grieve God in my life, actually feeling the problem. And there's this moment when I feel the problem, that moment of what we theologically call penitence. There is a moment of agreement with God. We agree. And then there is reconciliation. You have to feel the problem to embrace the solution. And that's exactly what's happening here. So don't be afraid to feel your disconnectedness. Allow yourself to feel your disconnectedness. Allow, when you wander away from God, may you feel the emptiness and the void that comes from, may you feel the conflict, because that becomes, and not so that you're condemned, but so that you can experience mercy. Because feeling the problem, as I'll say it again, is a necessary precursor to embracing the solution. In the words of Psalm 126, those who sow in tears will reap with songs of joy.
I'm thoroughly enjoying seeing all the patterns, the threads, the themes being introduced in the book of Exodus, in these foundational books. It has been so enlightening to me. And on our next episode in 2 weeks' time of Thrive Deeper, we get into the 10 Commandments. Oh, talk about patterns, themes, and ideas that will carry through to the rest of the Bible. You do not want to miss out on that one. Well, if you want to get in touch with us, please head over to thrivetoday.tv. thrivetoday.tv. It's our home and line, and I know this is a stressful time for a lot of people, so we're sending you lots of peace and love and prayers from all of us at the team here at Thrive Today, hoping that you and yours are safe, you're looking after each other, and you're looking to the author of all things, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, in this time. I'll see you next time. It's DJ here on Thrive Deeper.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Thrive Deeper. Matthew and DJ really appreciate the questions and thoughts about what you're reading in the Bible as you go through it with Thrive. Our home on the internet is thrivetoday.tv. You can contact us, ask questions, see all of our resources and much more at our website, thrivetoday.tv. The Thrive Today network is on Facebook. Our Facebook page and links to our community groups are waiting for you. Just search and like Thrive Today page in Facebook now. Visit ratethispodcast.com/Thrive Deeper. If you appreciate what we do and want to help us reach more people, go to ratethispodcast.com/Thrive Deeper. Until next time, our prayer is that these shows will inspire you to go deeper into God's Word and thrive. This was another DJP.FM production.